Hello and welcome on this Maundy Thursday to how to make flatbreads. So we are making unleavened bread this evening for our feast together to remember all those who have made flatbreads on this night, but you can use this recipe again at any point as well. Now, as I would always do at school, I've got my hair tied back, I've got my apron on, I've made sure that I'm nice and clean, and I'm just going to go and wash my hands. As we all know, this is really important at the moment. So, soap in your hands, and we need palm to palm, that's that way around, and then we're going to go between our fingers and give that a really good rub. Then we're going to go over the back once and twice, making sure you get in between all of your fingers. Then you've got your thumbs, rub your thumbs together, make sure that you get your wrists as well, backs of your hands, and then finally grabbing these together and give your fingers a little rub, and then hot water, rinse them off, and in the true spirit of elbow pumping still being a thing, turn your tap off like that and make sure that you are using the cloth that is for hand drying and not the one for anything else. So now we are ready to begin. I've got all my equipment out already, so you will need a pair of scales. In order to weigh stuff, you will need a measuring jug, you will need some way of measuring out your ingredients. I've got a handy half teaspoon already. You will need a sieve for your flour. I've got my bowl ready. Also, you'll need a rolling pin and then a heavy base frying pan a heavy base frying pan for when we then move on to cooking our tortillas. So we are looking at how to make and how to measure. So the first thing to remember is that we need to put our bowl on our scales before we turn them on, and then when we press on, we need to make sure that it is reading 0 with the bowl on, and also that we are measuring in grams. Nothing worse than doing the wrong amount measuring and then wondering at the end why it's all gone horribly wrong. So my bowl is on, I've got my plain flour. We need 110 grams of plain flour. So that's going to go in, and I'm going to measure that out and then sieve that into the bowl. As I always remind my students, why are we sieving things? And they would go, oh miss, because we've got to get the lumps out, we've got to aerate the flour. Like, yep, brilliant. So that is my 110 grams. So that's all my flour done. Put that over there. I then need to get my salt and my baking powder in. So I've got some fine sea salt here. I need half a level teaspoon of salt. This is my half a teaspoon. Level means that it's flat across the top. So that one goes in. And then I need my half a level teaspoon of baking powder. So this is going in as well. So again, nice and flat. In that goes into our bowl. Everything is now done. Now you can, if you want to, make plain ones. If you want to add flavouring, absolutely you can. You could add, for example, some herbs. You could add some hot chilli powder. So Uncle Dave, if you want to put the chilli powder in, absolutely go for it. I'm going to add some herbs in today. I'm going to put a teaspoon of herbs, again a level teaspoon, and they're going to go in there just to give it a bit of flavour. You can choose whatever you would like to put in. Garlic works quite well as well. You can put a bit of cumin in maybe, or some turmeric. You can also put tomato puree in, or that's much messier, so have a think about that one. So now I've got all my ingredients in, I'm going to take them off my scales, turn my scales off to save the battery, put them over there, and I need to add my liquid. So if we were making bread, I'd be putting my yeast in, or my baking powder, or my baking soda. If we were making bread, I'd be putting yeast in, or I would add maybe bicarbonate of soda. But we're making unleavened bread. That is bread that is not going to rise, so therefore we're not using those ingredients today. Okay, so now we're going to add our water. So we need 75 millilitres of water. So make sure you know on your jug where that 75 millilitres is. Now we need warm water. I boiled the kettle about probably 15-20 minutes ago, so it's cooled down now. So I'm going to put my jug flat on the surface, come to my kettle, a really good look, and make sure, that that is accurate. Really important to measure it flat, otherwise you'll go all wonky. So 75 millilitres, we might not use all of it, always easier to put more water in than it is to take water out. So I'm going to add most of my water to my dough mixture, just leaving a little bit there. and then using a round bladed knife, that's a normal kitchen knife, I'm just going to start to bring our dough together. So I'm bringing that together, and what we're looking for is for the dough to come together and for most of the loose flour to be incorporated into our mixture. Now you can just get your hand in straight from the very beginning if you want to, not a problem, but I like to start with a knife. So when we've got to that stage, I can see that is starting to come together into a dough, so then I'm going to go in and I'm just going to bring that together. So I'm scooping that up into a ball. I am pressing it down with a little bit of pressure, and I'm just seeing if I can make sure that this bowl is nice and clean. Now there's a few little bits left here, which means I need the tiniest of bits of water, little tiny bit in there, just to make sure that all of that has come together and my bowl is clean, pretty much clean. Okay, there we go. Now that's going to go out onto our work surface, and we're going to start to knead our dough. So we're going to use the palm of our hand and the tips of our fingers to push down and then grab up and then fold it over. Turn it around with your other hand, palm of your hand down, over, palm of your hand down and over. And what this is doing is just making our dough nice and elastic. Also, as I always say to my students, if anybody's really annoyed you at any point in your day or in the morning, okay, so I'm kneading this round, folding that over, and what we're looking for is a nice piece of well kneaded dough. Now this recipe will make 3 flatbreads. We only have an hour at school, but you can extend it. So we've used 110 grams of plain flour and some oregano today in this particular type, but you can again adjust the flavourings of the seasonings as you wish, and you can also double the recipe if you need to make more. This is also a really easy way if you've run out of bread and you think, oh no, what shall I do? Bit of plain flour, bit of baking powder, a little bit of seasoning, and very, very quickly you can have a little bit of bread for your supper. So, don't need to do too much kneading, just want to get it nice and elastic, and so that it's not sticking to the work surface in a nice ball. Okay, I'm going to divide this into 3. There's 1, 2 and 3, and then for each one of these we are then going to roll this into a ball and start to roll out. So using your rolling pin, just start to give it a little bit of roll out. Now you might need at this point to put a little bit more flour on your work surface. A little bit of flour on your work surface is fine. Again, we don't need to cover our kitchen or anybody else in it with lots of flour. So you can tell I've worked with teenagers for a while, can't you? So rolling that out, turning that round, backwards and forwards. This looks lovely, but it is far, far too thick. These need to be quite thin so that they cook evenly. So, make it into whatever shape you like, it doesn't really matter. As I said, it's fairly elastic, so it will stretch. This is not pizza dough, so we're not going to start twirling it around in our fingers or around our head, but you can already start to see this is becoming a thinner and a little bit more translucent. Again, turn that round. If it starts to stick, you can add a bit more flour, but you don't need to. And what you are looking for is a sort of bottom of the frying pan sized piece of fairly stretchy bread. And then when you've rolled that out, you can then pop that onto your plate. Well, I've made a sort of a shape. Emoji shaped flatbreads. Anyway, shape isn't important, it's all good, and now we move on to frying. Okay, so now we're going to come on to the point where we fry these. Now, you need a large, heavy base frying pan, but we don't use any oil. This is a dry frying method, which A means it's healthier, and B means this is a washing pan up, but you do need to be careful So please make sure you are doing this with a responsible adult or as a responsible adult. If you think you're an adult and you're not that responsible, find someone who is and get them to stand with you at the same time. So we need to heat our frying pan up. Now we're on a medium heat. So although I've got a gas hob here and I've turned that right round to hot, actually I'm going to turn it down a little bit to medium. And what we're going to do is we cook each one of our flatbreads for about 2 minutes on each side until it's just slightly flecked golden brown. And that's why it's really important to make sure that they're nice and thin, because what we don't want to do is for it to take too long to cook. So we need to make sure that our pan is nice and hot. I'm just holding my hand here, not touching the pan, just to gauge how hot the heat is. I've also already got my tongs already prepared for turning that over. That's always really useful as well. And make sure that your handle of your frying pan is over to the side and it's not over the rest of the hob. So we just need to make sure that we keep ourselves nice and safe. When your pan is nice and ready, you are going to take your flatbread, which you have beautifully laid out, and then you are going to lay that down in your pan. And this is the bit when we just have to wait. So normally at this point, I would be asking children lots of questions to recap what they've already done. So I'd be asking them about what type of flour we used and what flavourings we put in. I'd be checking how they've done their weighing and their measuring. I would be talking to them about what other flavourings they might like to put in if it was their own flatbreads. I think some children did do the tomato puree one the last time we did this, which was great fun. It was a Valentine's theme, so it made it nice and red colour, but it is quite messy. I do give them the option of making their own flavourings, which is quite nice. They quite enjoy that. I would also be making sure that they had followed all the health and safety, so I'd be recapping that with them as well, and I'd be making sure that they understood everything they needed to do, and that they were absolutely sure that they were in charge of their own washing up, and that anything that was not washed up properly and put back in the cupboards dry would then, they'd have to then do that again. It is amazing how many children absolutely love the cooking but really don't like the washing up part, and can be a little tricky sometimes to persuade that they need to do that as well, although we do work in kitchen teams and I do check everything, and they don't get to go out to break or lunch until everything is done. So it is quite handy. So I can see already that this has started to cook, and I know that because it started to bubble up. So I can see the bubbles starting to appear as this is starting to cook. Also I can check that I've had 2 minutes on my timer, so using my tongs, I'm going to take that now and I'm going to turn that over. I hope you can see that that is now lightly flecked with brown. My flatbread is now cooking. It's turning really, really nice, lovely and thin, lovely and crispy. That's practically done, which is excellent. If you want to keep these warm, you can turn your oven on to a low heat, and you can make sure that you put them back in the oven. So I've got greaseproof paper here in between the layers of my flatbreads, so you can lay them on baking trays and just keep them warm in the oven until you are all ready to use them. These are great for making, really, really easy to do, but I hope that you really enjoy that. Now, as you can see from both sides, is done. So my first flatbread is done, that one is ready. I can take that one off, leave that over there to cool. In I go with the second one, and so on and so on. So let me know how you get on, type in the comments. I hope this has been helpful. Take care, bye bye.